Common law is laws that are based on interpretation and precedence, meaning there are laws, but their interpretation might change over time, and we see the previous, you can say results to decide what will happen to a specific case. In civil law, you do not depend on interpretation of the law, or you do not care about previous judgment. You focus on what the law is and follow it to the letter. Okay. Then you have theocratic law based on religion. Right now in the world, you have only one religion that governs countries. If it's there, it's the Islamic system. Then you have customary law based on the old traditions and customs, and you have mixed system involving any of these two, mixture of these two. Now, can you identify the law in your country? First thing, is it common or civil? The civil system is mostly the European system of law. Common system comes from the British system. Britain has it, US has it, India has it. It's common law. Okay. Taiwan has civil law. Now your country has which law?
Common.
Thailand is civil law.
Civil law.
Yeah.
So there is no, you understand the difference between common and civil law, right? Is it clear or not?
Not really.
Not really? Okay. Now let's give you an example. For example, let's say the age of marriage legally is fixed at 18. Okay. If you have the civil law system, it's 18. There is no two ways about it. But if you have a common law system, it depends. The law is that you cannot get married below 18. But somebody gets married at 16, and then somebody files a case. The case goes to the court, and the court says, no, 18 is the fixed age limit because we believe that at 18, you are mature enough to make your decisions. But in this case, we are seeing that the people involved are mature enough. So, it's fine, they can remain married. That's the common law system. Then, what happens is that, now the law has not changed, but for that case, it was taken as 16 is fine. Now then what happens, somebody else does that, and then another court in some other place in India cites that okay, there was a precedence, we have seen that in 16 you can get married if these are the conditions. So if these people got married, it's not a problem. So the judgment is based on precedence, how you interpret the law and how you see it and how it's not that absolute. In civil law, 18 means 18, that's it. We don't know anything else. But most systems now, you'll see that there is some mixture of common and civil law. Okay? Maybe it's like mostly common law, but slight inclusion of civil law, that laws do not change at all. And if in civil law system you will find that there is a precedence of interpretation coming with, that is a kind of common law. So now, is it clear? So what do you have?
Mixed.
Mostly, let's say it's more than 80%, which one? Common or civil?
Common law.
Civil law. Okay. What about your country?
Civil law.
Civil law. In India we have common law, in the US common, British common, common law because Britain started that system. So things are pretty complicated. Okay. There are interpretations involved. But I won't comment on which one is a fairer system. It depends on how the judgment is passed and how equal people are in their rights. Now, in many countries you'll have like a mixture. Like in India we have a mixture of common and theocratic law. Okay? It's a bit confusing. Like Muslims get to keep some of their laws, and they are separate from the legal system of for others. Now, also for technicality, we also have like Hindu laws, Muslim laws, and plus common law for everybody else. So it's quite complicated. Okay. I don't want to go into that. But like in Indonesia, you have a mixture of civil and theocratic. Okay. In Saudi, you have only theocratic. Okay? There are no other laws. They are not even theocratic, they are just arbitrary. Customary law, the mixture of any law system with old customs. Okay? And it's complicated. Like in India, everybody is supposed to wear a helmet, except the Sikhs. Because they wear a huge turban, there is no helmet that can fit. So they are not fined if they are not wearing a helmet. Because it's not possible, and that's their custom, so you cannot ask them to wear a helmet. Okay? So this is just a form of customary law, and depends in many countries, the system. Now mixed system and just mixed system. Now let's see what we have in the world. Now you can see in red you have civil law system. Okay? So this entire Europe, you can say, with Russia has the civil law system. Okay? Now this is Greenland, right? Now in the US and Canada you have common law. In India you have common law with mixed. Okay? A mixture with customary laws. And then in Australia and New Zealand you have common law. And here you have civil law mixed with customary laws, or any kind of mixture. And then in most of African countries you have mixed laws. Okay. Now UK, you can see it's part of Europe, but it has the common law system. What is here? What is this?
Civil and common.
This is Canada, right? The civil and common mixed. And here also they're showing, because in the US the problem is that it's too many things going on together. Very different laws in different places, and how the law will be applied depends on in which state you are, even if it's the same law. Okay? Any questions so far? Now all systems are good as long as they work. Okay. Now, trends in legal system. This is the main problem. It's not the laws, it's how they are implemented. There are two things. Basis of rule, the rule of man or the rule of law. Now, rule of man, legal rights derived from the individual who commands the power to impose them, and associated with totalitarian systems. Rule of man means that no matter what kind of law you have, the person in power or the party in power is above the law. They decide it. So in China, for example, you have Communist Party of China, which is above the law. Okay, the rules do not apply in the same way. Or you have dictator systems, you have authoritarian systems, you will have rule of man. Okay. To the extent, for example, in China, you know, there was a term limit for president. Okay. Now the current president has removed that. Because he has become so powerful that he changed that, and now he's in power for ever, in perpetuity. And that was a joke at that time, that people should start calling him His Excellency, because he's become a monarch of sorts. So, by the way, who is the current president of China? Okay, so you know. Just confirm. Not current, he's the forever president of China right now. So, they've changed the system to accommodate him as he can be in power as long as he wants to. So, rule of man is there in many countries. Even in democracies, you'll find rule of man. Okay. Like for example, a lot of times in our local political systems, we have rule of man. That is, there is a total failure of governance. For example, from the state which I come from in India, I was telling you, right, that it was a lawless place, and it is within India, all regulations were there, rules were there, but nobody followed it. Dependent on our, the person in power, who goes to jail, who does not go to jail, who does what, dependent on that. But now he's not in power, so he's in the jail right now. So very few politicians have been jailed in India, he's one of them. So he's enjoying his time in jail. not for rule of man, but for corruption. Okay. He was one of the few who was actually caught. So that's rule of man. Then we have rule of law. That is, nobody is above the law. We have systematic and objective laws applied by the public officials who are held accountable for their administration associated with the democratic system. Okay, not always. So, it's a very simple thing. Let's say that you are a police officer standing on traffic duty and you see the president's car coming and they are not following the rule, let's say, of speed limit, for example. You can stop and fine the president's driver or the president for that. Okay? That's rule of law. Rule of man, you let the president pass without saying anything, because if you do that, you'll be in trouble. Okay? And you don't need to be the president. Anybody who is senior to you, if you do not fine them, that's rule of man. Because you think that they are in a superior position, you cannot do anything to them. So I don't need to say, you know from which country you are, you know what is the system in your own country, right? So you know if you have what kind of law. Now you may have rule of law, but for some conditions rule of man, or you have totally rule of law or totally rule of man, depends. There may be a mixture as well. Okay? So I don't want to point out, I think you already know yourself, right? So is this clear?
Yes.
Okay. Now what about Taiwan? What do you think?
Rule of law.
Rule of law?
Yes.
But there is a conflict, there is huge power distance in Taiwan. You know what's power distance, right? The distance between senior and juniors, causing one-way communication or like too much respect for the senior in the sense that you do not point out their problems. So, in Taiwan you have rule of law? Mostly, I would say, not entirely. Regulations, if you're very powerful, politically, not otherwise, if you're politically very powerful, things change for you. It doesn't remain the same. Okay? And because of the power distance that's there. And power distance can cause a lot of problems. I'll give you just one example to how catastrophic it can be. Now, you know South Korea, right? You know South Korean Airlines? Their logo is like Pepsi's logo. Now, when they started their commercial airlines, Korean Airways, they used to hire pilots from the Air Force to fly. Most of their pilots were like retired pilots of Air Force. Now, one time, airlines, their one flight crashed, okay, because of the mistake by the captain. Sorry?
Senior and junior communication problems.
Yeah, that was there. The problem was mainly, is that the pilot did not see how much they are rolling the aircraft. Rolling like this, okay? And the junior pilot saw that, but did not say anything because he was a senior pilot. How could he say that you are making a mistake? And everybody died on the flight. That's what I remember. So power distance can be a very catastrophic thing in some situations. You can see, because he was senior, he did not point out and did not say anything, and then it became uncontrollable. So power distance can be a problem to this extent. And like in Taiwan, we have very high power distance, so this can be a problem. Still, it's fairly good, but still there are problems. Now, in countries where you have rule of man, dictatorships or monarchies, this depends on one person, what they do. Okay. Any questions or comments? No? Indonesia, you have rule of law?
It's supposed to be rule of law, but in the reality, you are not rule of man.
That's the main problem. If you know that there is rule of man, you know that. But if you know that technically there is rule of law, but rule of man is more important. And it can be any kind of power, like people who have money, a lot of times they're able to flaunt the regulations and they do not follow it because they have money, so they can easily escape because of corruption. So that's the problem that's there. Okay, so this is distribution of rule of law. Just an example now, if it's dark green, it's above 90th percentile, you have rule of law. So, and light green is 75 to 90th percentile. Okay? So you can see what part of the world is green. Then you have 50 to 75 in yellow, rule of law. So you can, they have put Saudi and India together. Okay? That's now for me. To me, it's not acceptable. But if they are saying that, what can I say? Anyway, 25 to 50 in orange. So you can see here. Then in pink, you have pink or whatever color this is. Okay. For me, any shade of that thing is pink.
Yes.
10 to 25%. In red, the situation is very bad. So this is what you have in red, but not many right now. And for grey, there is no data. So there are very few countries. Do you agree with this map, or you believe otherwise?
Indonesia berapa sih? Boring.
Is Putin. He has remained in power somehow. For how many years? Any idea? He was there for 2 terms. Then he installed a puppet president, and he became prime minister. Then he came back as president. Okay. So 4 terms under his power, and I don't know if it's 5th or also, I don't remember. But Russia, reporters have been killed for writing against the government. Okay. There was an incident, I think, in the UK, where a Russian nerve agent was used to kill a person in a bar or somewhere. Remember that news? No? Okay. Sometimes, I forget because these things happen and I'm not sure if it's like fiction or reality. In Russia, this is happening under Putin for a long time. Okay. And he was very intelligent. He is the seed. He created a very nice public image in the beginning, going for hunting pictures. A lot of political leaders are following that now. Shirtless picture, riding a horse and all that, to create an image that is very people friendly. And then he occupied power, and then he's been there a long time. So, if you hear about any political leader a lot, that's my system of understanding. If you're hearing about a political leader too much, something is wrong. Because a lot of leaders come and pass and you don't hear about them. Now, who are the leaders who ended Cold War from Russia and US? When Cold War was officially ended, who was US president?
Kennedy.
You know him, but
Kennedy.
for a wrong reason. See, when somebody gets very famous, it's always for wrong reason. Remember Bill Clinton? Okay, why do you know him?
Scandal.
Scandal. Okay. You remember the name?
Yeah.
Monica Bellucci.
Very difficult to remember. It has been a long time. Right? I was a kid at that time. So, okay. Now, who was Russia's president?
I think Gorbachev.
Yes, Gorbachev. But you don't know him, right?
No.
But you know Putin.
Yes.
You won't remember Bill Clinton if you did not do that scandal. But you are going to remember Trump.
And Obama.
Obama for a different reason, because he was the first black president, and right now only black president, that's it. And if you compare Bush and Trump with Obama, obviously you feel better. Okay?
It's the same with the former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi.
Yeah, he was.
Everyone knew him because of his scandals.
Yeah, because of his scandal. So if you're hearing about some leader too much, something is wrong. Do you know the current Prime Minister of Britain?
Morris.
Why do you know him?
Look like Trump.
No, because he was the main proponent of Brexit. So you know people, if they are, and some leaders we know just because they are very handsome, like for example, the Prime Minister of Canada.
And Trudeau.
Okay.
Just
Yeah, my wife follows him on Facebook. So not because of his politics, but because he's very handsome. Yeah. He's not going to win again, I think. So I'm happy. So moving on. No, I like him too. He dances like Bollywood on Bollywood songs very well. He can. So anyway, moving on from Trudeau. So operational concerns, coming to important issues in business. How does politics and legal systems of a country affect your business? You will have operational issues like starting a business. Depending on the regulations, if it's an open country, if it's a democratic country, it's much easier. Totalitarian regime, much difficult. Entering and enforcing contracts. Again, totalitarian systems, too complicated. Democracy is simpler. Hiring and firing workers, depends. Like I was giving an example of India, but why? Because India has a mixed system, okay, a mixed approach. It's not that much anymore because capitalism became much stronger. India has a system, mixed system, economic system that is mixed with socialism. So because of which we have more complicated laws for firing workers. Closing down the business, as I said, more difficult in totalitarian systems. In general, rich countries regulate less. Now, this has nothing to do with politics, it's economics. But everything is a result of the other. So if you are rich maybe because you have a democracy, or you are rich because you had a democracy, you are rich so you adopted democracy. Both things happen. Poor countries regulate more. It's also because poor countries have a lot of groups that are at risk, so they want to protect those groups. That's why more regulations are there. Any questions? Okay. So let's move forward. I'll take a break when we finish the chapter and then we can have the presentation, okay? Strategic issues, you have to think about those, how to handle that. And these issues, these are the strategic issues that we're going to discuss. Country of origin, local content. You know what's country of origin? The country of origin of a product. Okay? Now there are regulations regarding that. For example, people may boycott some countries, so they boycott their products. Government may have regulation of local content that if you want to do business here, you have to source locally. Okay? India has this system. That's why IKEA took a long time to establish their business there. Even Walmart faced a lot of problems. Walmart is there in India, not doing very well, though it's there. So the idea is that you have to source locally so that local farmers or local manufacturers can benefit. So you have to think about that. Is it possible for you? Can you make money doing this or not? Okay. Marketplace behavior, you have to see, this is one of the concerns. Marketplace behavior is shaped by the political and the legal environment. And product safety and liability laws are very different in different countries. Now, you may have, for example, the content of any toxin in your food. Okay? Now, it's not that it's not there. You eat processed food, there are toxins. For example, lead, L-E-A-D, the metal lead, it's a toxin. It's not good for our body. So, countries regulate the amount of lead that you can have in your food. But the amount depends on the government. Like in poor countries, you have less regulations and you can have more of lead or, for example, pesticides. Now, as the countries are more like, let's say, richer, they have more regulations. Okay? And Taiwan has much more regulation than India or Indonesia, but it's less than the European countries. Okay? In the EU, you have the highest standard of safety and liability. Meaning that if you are consuming food there, you have the minimum amount of toxins in the world. Still, there also it's allowed to a certain extent, because if you're processing food, you cannot eliminate toxins. It's not possible. So you have toxin and pesticides, they're there. Even when you use organic fertilizer, you will have toxins, because you cannot stop the rain, right? There's toxins in atmosphere. When it rains, it goes to the soil and plants have it. So the amount is regulated. So as a company, you need to see in which country you're operating and follow the safety standards of that country. That's the basic idea. Legal jurisdiction. Now, legally, you see that sometimes companies have this kind of statement in their terms and conditions, that if there is any conflict or dispute, it will be settled in my home state, in the company's home state, because it's less financial burden. If I file a case against you in Taiwan, you are a US company, it becomes difficult for you to deal with the case, because you are in a different country. But generally, if you are operating in that country, you have to follow the rules and regulations of that country. Then you have intellectual property. We've already discussed that if intellectual property is involved, you have the problem that there is no global patent, trademark, or copyright. If you create something, let's say you innovate and create a machine, you have to get a copyright or patent in each country. Is that possible? Very difficult. Patent or a trademark or copyright paperwork is very lengthy, and getting it in Indian country is difficult, so many countries will not treat copyrights in the same way as they do in some other countries. So these are the definition of intellectual property and the rights, okay, which we do not care about, most of us, because we're from this side of the world. Now, for example, now I have some money, not a lot of money, so I can pay for some things. For example, if I download some software which I use for my research, I pay for it, even if it's expensive. But I still won't pay for Photoshop. I download the trial, use it, and then it expires, just download it on another computer, use it. When it expires, download on another computer. I have many computers because the government has given me, not that I have money. So I just manage it that way. I don't use a crack till now. So try to use as legally as possible, but it's not always possible. Right? And then in Taiwan, for your information, there is a regulation regarding fair use. Like, you know these online movie websites where you watch movies? I'm not asking which one, I'm just telling you, you know. Because you watch movies online?
Yes.
Right? Now in Taiwan, if you watch a movie online, that's considered fair use. If you are doing it, if you are not broadcasting it. It's fair use in the sense that it's illegal to host a movie, but if it's there and you are watching it, it's considered fair use. The government will not catch you. But I'm not an expert on law, so don't depend on my definition. That's what I understood from their law. But in the US, if you do that, that's illegal still. That's the difference. Okay, and review towards intellectual property. As I've said, legal legacies. Rule of man is there. Intellectual property doesn't have too much value. Rule of law, it's considered a serious offense. Wealth, poverty, and protection. If you have high economic development, you tend to protect intellectual property. Why? Because see, if you're economically developed, most probably you are a knowledge economy. Have you studied economies? There is agrarian economy, depending on agriculture. Then you have industrial economy, depending on production. Then you have service economy, depending on services. And then you have finally the knowledge economy, depending on generation of knowledge. For example, Switzerland is a knowledge economy and a service economy. They innovate a lot. We know them only for cheese and chocolate and bags, but what they are really creating is knowledge. They do a lot of research and a lot of innovation. Okay? So they tend to protect intellectual property more. And industrial economies and like China or agrarian economies like in India, we do not care much about piracy. For instance, in China, if you own 499 pirated DVDs, it's legal. If you own 500, you get fined. Okay? So that's the understanding. Cultural orientation, and we discussed earlier as well, individualism, more protection for intellectual property, collectivism, less protection. Okay? Now that's all for the slides. Any questions?